If you guys would please stand for the flag pledge. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Morrison County Planning Commission public hearing for May 30th, 2023. I have a few items to cover before we get started. Please sign in at the door if you have not already done so. There will also find a detached or detailed handout of the step-by-step procedure we will be following tonight. If you wish to take one, they should be over by the door. Please put any electronic devices on a silent mode at this time. Also, please note that all testimony is being recorded for the record. Members of the Planning Commission are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts. Land Surface staff is here to assist the Planning Commission with its duties. The task of the Planning Commission is to hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to the County Board of Commissioners for approval or denial of requests for conditional and interim use permits, rezones, plats, and ordinance amendments in accordance to state law and county ordinance. The burden of approving a request meets the criteria for approval rests with the applicant. There is a protocol for how we will proceed tonight. For each request on the agenda, we will hear a staff report, hear testimony from the applicants, and then we will discuss and gather more information as needed. Next, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request. I will ask each party to come to the podium up there. Speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and give your testimony. Please be as factual as possible and direct all statements and questions to me, the chair. After all testimony is complete, I will close the public hearing portion of the process. The Planning Commission will then review and discuss the case in terms of our finding of fact criteria as required by Minnesota statute and county ordinance. We will have a series of votes, discuss whether conditions be made. Then there will be a final motion to recommend approval or denial to the County Board of Commissioners. After the final vote on your request, you may leave if you wish. The County Board of Commissioners will then consider the request and our recommendation at their next regular meeting, and will either grant or deny the request. So tonight we have one item on our agenda, and that is Fellowship Bible Church of Pierce, 12876 Highway 25, Pierce. Application for conditional use permit to expand the church. Located in point of southwest quarter of northwest quarter, section 20, township 40, range 30, Pierce Township. The applicants, please come forward and speak in the microphone and state your names for the record, please.
Good evening, Bob Otremba.
I'm Kathy Callhammer.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I guess, Amy, you ready with your staff report?
I am, Mr. Chair. So again, this is an application for a conditional use permit to expand the church by adding 2 additions. And this is located in section 20 of Pierce Township. Section 506.8 requires a conditional use permit for structural alterations of a use that has been granted a conditional use permit. Here is a plat map of Pierce Township, and the red dot is the location of the parcel. And then here's the conditional use permit request received from the church. And then a site drawing also provided by the church. Here's an aerial photograph of the property. The property is made up of 2 parcels with a total of 5 acres and is located to the south of Pierce city limits on Highway 25. The property was granted a conditional use permit in 2013 to establish a church within the existing building. The previous use of the building was a bar and grill. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a phased expansion of the church. The first phase would get underway between the fall of 2023 and spring of 2024. It would include a 7,000 square foot addition onto the south end of the existing church and would include a new sanctuary, classrooms, offices, and restrooms. The second phase would be a 3,600 square foot addition onto the northeast side of the church for additional Sunday school classroom space. Both additions would meet all setbacks. The church is currently served by a bituminous parking lot on the west and south side of the existing church, and additional parking is planned farther south of the church and on the north parcel, and you saw that in the application on the site drawings. 2 septic systems currently serve the property. Both had a recent inspection, and both were found to be compliant. Modifications to one of the systems has been designed and approved by the county to handle the additional flow for the additions. A grading plan for stormwater has also been provided. The immediate area consists of rural residences, the city of Genola ball fields, and agricultural fields. And here's an aerial photograph of the general area. The applicable comprehensive plan goals and objectives is local economic development, goal C2. Objective 2 and 19. 47 notices were sent and no comment was received prior to the public hearing. And then here are your conditional use criteria. Questions, Mr. Chair?
Okay, thank you, Amy. At this time, would applicants, either one of you have anything to add to what we've heard so far?
I don't.
Okay. So I guess we'll move over to board members. You guys have any questions for the applicants? Dave?
We gotta ask him something. Bob used to sit up here and do this.
I did.
He was you, Clint. Anyway, if we could go back to the zoning, or whatever it was, the plat map, showed the neighbors. Maybe you could give a summary of who your neighbors are.
So to the south, the state of Minnesota owns a piece of property in there. They're stockpiling some bituminous millings in there. So really to the south, it's ag and the state. Kind of to the east and south, there's some residential, but I would say rural residential. I mean, it's not a community by any means, some shared driveways and a few houses, but there's a fair amount of tree cover in there as well. So it's really not, we don't have visible neighbors, I guess, as far as that goes.
Yeah, and it just seems odd that that's a commercial area. It just is what it is. Is it commercial all the way to Genola?
I don't believe so. I mean, when it was a triple play bar and grill is kind of what started there. Well, Jolly Jack, I guess, at one point had a restaurant there as well. So I think it just kind of got some additions and this church bought it in 2013. So
Oh, maybe it was zoned specifically for this.
I guess maybe Amy would know that question, but
I'm working on it.
I don't know, since I've been on the board, this might be the first church in a commercial area that
Well, churches must be in a commercial area.
it must be.
Correct, and they're allowed with a conditional use permit. So that's a requirement of a church to be in a commercially zoned area. So
What about the rural churches we've worked with?
they're allowed in other areas, but commercial zone is a zoning district that is allowed
Correct.
for them
They
to
don't
be
have
there.
to be in
Correct, but they need to be established with a conditional use permit in the commercial. That's why they got the original conditional use permit to switch the use from the bar and grill to the church. It was an allowed use, they just needed to get the conditional use permit granted for that.
Okay. I think that clears that up.
Yeah, and my beacon isn't cooperating with me at the moment to turn on
And how many letters were sent out?
47.
47.
And no feedback? Any feedback from your neighbors? Did you?
we haven't heard any feedback from neighbors.
Okay, let me just, lost my connection here. Give me one moment and I'll show you the zoning map. There we go. Okay, and I'll just make sure that my Teams person can see. There we go. Okay, so this is the zoning map of the area. And I'm just gonna zoom it out. So,
Could you click on the owner names too, as long as they're there?
bet. So the church is the only commercial zoning in the area, or those two properties are. Otherwise, it's agriculture, shoreland due to the stream, and then up here in the north, we have residential.
I guess that was my question. How did that get to be zoning? Because it was a commercial
I
business?
believe it's been, that property has had some sort of commercial use on it for quite a long time. And so when the zoning maps first came out, the zoning district was assigned based on the present use of the property. And so more than likely that had been and was being used commercially at the time. So that's why it got that designation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Marvin?
a couple questions. First was, obviously, it's 10 years you established the church there. The next one was, I noticed on the topographical map that there were some ponds that were relatively close to that site, and a septic system must be obviously away from that. And I would assume the ponds are tied in with the creek there. No concern with that? Because it seemed like they're relatively close by that map. I don't know.
So you're asking about whether or not we're concerned with the stormwater movement
Yes,
on the property?
because it sounds like there's a plan, but I don't know if that
Yes.
was submitted or not.
So we have this, when the building occurs, then that we'll probably get something a little bit in better detail. But that was something when I was visiting with Bob about the preliminary plans, that was something that I said needed to be addressed, was movement of stormwater and containing of the stormwater on the property. And so he's aware of that, and probably, do you have or do you have plans for a more detailed plan other than this?
No, we don't.
Okay, so it'll get more scrutiny once,
So how close are them ponds anyhow? Because they look relatively close to the backside.
here's another aerial photo.
Yeah,
So there's definitely room for stormwater catchment and or containment between there and the pond. And I also believe that the way the grading plan is, you're gonna be directing some of that to the ditch, to the road ditch, so it may not be graded to receive, it's not gonna be graded to head towards the pond. The addition will be going down here.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, is that
Go ahead, Dave.
something we need to condition, or that's something that's going to be required?
That's something we'll be paying attention to anyway.
Okay.
And so when the land use permit comes in, we'll be taking a closer look at the stormwater plan and making sure that that is done. And if more work needs to be done, we'll work with the applicant on that, yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Anybody? Okay, my only one maybe is towards Amy. This is on two lots.
Yes,
Are they incorporated together, or doesn't it have to be? Because I see it meets all setbacks.
correct. They're not combined at the moment, so I'll go back to this. Give me just a second here to get back to my. So right now, they're two separate standalone parcels. And they certainly can combine them, and maybe should, because then that property line goes away. And so, because right now they could move separately, they could be sold separately, move separately, and So it's nothing we would require. It's certainly something
But
they could do.
It meets setbacks from that
That's
property
correct.
line.
Yes,
Okay.
this addition for sure
Yep.
will meet it. This one would need to be 25 feet from that, and I believe that still would
Real
meet that.
close, yep.
But, yeah, it's something that they may want to consider.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have no other questions, I guess. I seen, took me 3 times to find out where your new well was going. I seen that the well was right where you're proposing your building, and I don't know how I missed the new one. My 3rd trip through, I found it. Got all the sewer stuff, kinda taken care of ahead of time, so that's great. Kinda got a stormwater plan somewhat in place. One thing I think that helps at this point, it's gravel or bitumen, there isn't much bituminous, just one piece, so I think that helps for right now. Other than that, I guess I don't have any other questions, I guess, that I could think of to ask to help the board, the county board either, but, okay, so with that, I'm gonna open it up to anybody in the audience, that would have any public comment for this one here. If you do, please go up to the podium and state your name for the record, speak into the microphone. I don't think, no one's here. So I have to ask 3 times. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on public comment for this application? Any public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting to the public. We don't have nobody from the city or the township here. Okay, anybody have any questions quick, or we're gonna go through our criteria questions, I think. Guys ready for that? Yes. Okay. Okay, question 1. The use would not put an excess burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities such as parks and schools. We'll start with Dave Stish.
Well, as far as the criteria questions go, I think the applicant has done a very admirable job of answering all of them pretty completely, and I just echo what he's already got down. Adequate off-street parking, working with power companies to relocate power lines, natural gas, electric well. Ball fields are across the road will not be affected, no schools in the area. Upgrades to the septic system, in addition, have been designed and approved by Morrison County Land Services, so just read what they have on the application.
Okay, anybody have anything else to add to question 1?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Marv.
Also being on a major highway 25 there, adequate to come on and off there will not create a problem.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to question 2. The request to not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in area. We'll start with Marvin.
Yes, the way I look at it is this church has been operating here for 10 years and they're gradually growing and they're outgrowing. They did here, they have 47 notices were sent, no negative remarks about it. And here it fits in that area with the ball fields around there, being right on Highway 25. So I don't think there would be a problem at all.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to question 2? Now we'll move on to question 3. The use and opinion of the planning commission is reasonably related to the existing land use and the environment. Groundwater, surface water, and air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by the proposed use. We'll start with John.
I think the applicant addressed this perfectly in his application here. And thank you for working with the engineers for the groundwater runoff and surface area. It was perfect.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to question 3?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Brent.
I'd just add that this is not changing the use of the land. It's currently operating as a church, and it's going to continue to do that. So, again, echoing what was written on the application, I think holds true here.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to question 4. The use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. And myself, Clint, will start with that one. It's zone commercial. It is allowed use with a conditional use permit in that zoning. When I look through the goals and objectives, you know, ensure the land use regulations allow for a variety of businesses and industry consistent with the rural settings of the county in areas where they have access to adequate infrastructure and services and where they will not create unnecessary conflict with other land uses. I think what they're doing with this property and having a church there, more than suffice that. They don't unnecessary conflict with anybody. It used to be a bar before that, so I would surely hope that this would be a lot more pleasing to the whole neighborhood and community. Anybody else have anything to add to question 4?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
I'd
Dave.
just like to add that, you know, there's a CUP is required, therefore a public notice was published in the record, and a public hearing was held. So plenty of time for input to address any of those concerns that might have arisen, and there are none.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to question 5. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the water plan of the county. Brent?
Well, first of all, I'll just refer everybody to what the applicant wrote down here without rereading it, to be redundant. It's there, it's written, and I think Clint just said that in response to question number 4. In response to this, this is not a new use or a venture. It's got adequate buffer to the east for water protection there. The septic design has been approved by the county already, and I don't think that the use, being that it is already being used for church now, is in any conflict moving forward with the proposed plan.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments on question 5?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
I'd
Marv.
also like to comment about having a stormwater plan and the willingness to divert the water where necessary.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna move on to the vote on the criteria questions. Anybody have anything like conditions or anything? I don't have anything, so. Okay, so we'll just move on to the vote then. The criteria questions. Okay, question 1. The use will not put an excess burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities such as parks and schools. Dave?
Yes.
Marvin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Myself, Clint Catherines, yes. Brent?
Yes.
Question 2. The request will not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant area. Marvin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Myself, Clint Catherines, yes. Brent?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Okay, question 3. The use and opinion of the planning commission is reasonably related to the existing land use and the environment. Groundwater, surface water, and air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by the proposed use. John?
Yes.
Myself, Clint is yes. Brent?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marvin?
Yes.
Question 4, the use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. Myself, Clint is yes. Brent?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marvin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Question 5, the use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the water plan of the county. Brent?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marvin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Myself, Clint is yes. Okay, looks like we answered all the questions in the affirmative. So, I guess at this time I'd take a motion to recommend approval.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Marv.
I would like to make a motion to approval to recommend the commissioners approve this.
Okay,
Second that.
Dave. Okay, a motion's made and seconded to recommend approval to the county board at their June 6, 2023 meeting. All in favor say aye. Myself, Clint, is aye. Brent?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Marvin?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay. Passed. So we're gonna recommend approval to the county board, and that'll be on their June 6th meeting. If you have any questions between now and then, please contact Land Services. Thank you,
Thank you all.
guys. Okay, I guess we got some minutes here to approve, guys, from our May 16th meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from May 16th. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved. Any old business? I don't know of any. Any new business, Amy?
I don't have any, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I guess we don't have much else to do, so we'll just look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Chair, make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 5:27.